Let's get right into it. Number 10. The Order of the Solar Temple. Imagine believing so hard in your own cosmic destiny that you start prepping for a VIP afterlife reservation on a star system you've never visited. That's basically the Order of the Solar Temple, a group that mixed New Age mysticism, medieval nostalgia, and apocalyptic overconfidence into one extremely dangerous smoothie. Founded in the late 20th century across Europe and Canada, this cult insisted its members were reincarnated knights destined to transcend Earth and hop over to the star Sirius like interstellar commuters. Cute in theory, catastrophic in reality. Your average meeting involved elaborate rituals, candlelit robes, and enough dramatic flair to make Renaissance actors look subtle. But the fun ended when leaders began claiming the world was about to collapse, and the only escape route was through ritualized death. Members believed they were shedding their physical forms to reunite with cosmic beings. What they were actually doing was falling victim to extreme manipulation, doomsday pressure, and leaders with a concerning obsession with staged ascensions. Psychologically, it's a classic cocktail of authoritarian influence, groupthink, and the kind of magical thinking your brain normally reserves for 3 a.m. existential spirals. Once members were convinced their entire purpose depended on obedience, the group spiraled into tragedy. Basically, it's what happens when a Renaissance fair, a sci-fi novel, and an unhinged philosophy professor form a group project and everyone passes away instead of dropping the class. Number 9. The Rajneesh movement, Osho cult. Picture a desert commune that starts off as a peace and love spiritual resort and ends with biochemical attacks, wiretapping, immigration fraud, and more Rolls-Royces than any spiritual leader reasonably needs. Welcome to the Rajneesh movement, one of the most chaotic cult stories to ever hit American soil. What began as a meditation retreat escalated into a small city run by followers who were very enthusiastic about enlightenment and also arming themselves. At first, thousands flocked to Oregon for a utopian dream full of yoga, community, and the world's largest collection of maroon wardrobes. But then came the power struggles, and the paranoia, and the plan to sway local elections by poisoning salad bars with salmonella. Yes, salad bars. Your brain expected tranquility. Instead, you got bacteria-based voter suppression. The psychology behind it? A charismatic leader with a godlike aura, plus followers longing for purpose, plus isolation, a leadership circle that treated ethics like a loose suggestion. Mix all of that with fear of outsiders and you get a community willing to justify almost anything in the name of protecting itself. Basically, it was a spiritual movement that wanted inner peace and accidentally reinvented biological warfare. Number 8. Aum Shinrikyo. Imagine waking up one day thinking you've joined a meditation group and the next thing you know, you're helping build a doomsday machine in the basement for a guy who claims he can levitate. That's Aum Shinrikyo, the Japanese cult that blended yoga, apocalyptic prophecy, and full-blown sci-fi villain energy. Led by Shoko Asahara, man who basically speed-ran the path from spiritual influencer to international terrorist, the group believed World War III was imminent and they were chosen to survive it. Members were promised enlightenment but ended up trapped in a pressure cooker of sleep deprivation, isolation, and fear. And in that environment, Asahara's wildest claims sounded less like nonsense and more like divine instruction. That's how you get thousands of followers manufacturing chemical weapons, convinced they were saving humanity from cosmic disaster. The Tokyo subway sarin attack in 1995 became the horrific result of groupthink pushed to its lethal limit. Psychologically, Aum is the perfect example of how an authoritarian leader can hijack people's reasoning when they're overwhelmed, exhausted, and searching for meaning. It's your brain's disaster mode. Shut off doubt, cling to certainty, obey, or else. Once that switch flips, logic leaves the chat. Basically, if Marvel ever wrote a villain whose superpower was convincing people to ignore red flags, Aum Shinrikyo would sue for copyright. Number 7. Heaven's Gate picture. A group of people who were so committed to joining a UFO crew that they treated Nike sneakers like ceremonial robes and considered a passing comet their cosmic Uber. Heaven's Gate was a cult that blended sci-fi, ascetic living, and a startling level of trust in two leaders, Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles, who claimed Earth was about to be recycled. Humanity? Gone. Your soul? Upgraded. Your physical body? Just an inconvenient flesh suit holding you back from your true extraterrestrial form. Members lived communally with strict rules. No sex, no individuality, no outside influence, and for some, no reproductive organs, because apparently cosmic ascension requires a very streamlined chassis. Their logic hinged on the idea that a spacecraft trailing the Hale-Bopp comet would pick them up if they shed their human bodies at exactly the right moment. It sounds absurd from the outside, but for members it offered relief from uncertainty, identity confusion, societal pressure, basically all the migraines of being alive. Applewhite supplied a complete worldview with answers to every question and a purpose that felt bigger than life itself. And that's the terrifying part. Meaning is intoxicating, especially when you feel lost. Heaven's Gate wasn't stupidity. It was humans needing belonging so desperately that even a comet sounded like home. Number 6. The Manson family. Imagine going to a music festival, meeting a scruffy guy with a guitar who talks like a Zen poet, and by the end of the weekend, you're convinced he's the reincarnation of everything holy, and also maybe the next world leader. That's the Charles Manson effect, a man who weaponized charisma the way toddlers weaponize chaos. His followers weren't mindless drones, they were mostly vulnerable young people who felt invisible, unwanted, or numb. And then along comes Charles, offering family, purpose, and a very deranged mixtape about an apocalyptic race war he called Helter Skelter. The Manson family lived in a pressure cooker echo chamber where reality slowly dissolved. When you're isolated in the desert, sleep-deprived, constantly high, and being told you're part of a cosmic mission, your brain stops waving the "this seems insane" flag. Instead, it switches to "sure, let's carve prophecies into people's houses." The terrifying psychology behind it is how group identity overrides personal morality. It's like your conscience hands over the wheel and says, "You drive. I'm tired." Manson didn't force people with brute strength. He used belonging, flattery, fear, and the promise of a world where his followers mattered. And that cocktail is potent enough to make people commit atrocities they'd never imagine alone. Basically, he was a con artist who somehow speed-ran guy with a guitar to cult leader without ever learning to play the guitar well. Number 5. The Order of the Solar Temple. Imagine someone tells you they've discovered the secret teachings of the Knights Templar. You're thinking medieval history, maybe a cool costume, definitely a sword. But now these guys took it to, we must ascend to a higher plane before the world collapses. Please drink this levels of commitment. The Order of the Solar Temple operated in Canada, Switzerland, and France, and it combined conspiracy theories, ritual magic, doomsday predictions, and leadership with the self-awareness of a brick. Members believed they were chosen to be reborn on a planet orbiting Sirius. Yes, the star. Yes, physically. The leaders used staged miracles involving hidden smoke machines and trapdoors to prove their powers, because nothing says divine truth like discount theatre effects. Once you believe your leaders can teleport or speak to cosmic beings, it becomes a lot harder to question why they're also demanding your bank account information. Psychologically, the Solar Temple thrived on manufactured awe. When people experience fake miracles in a controlled environment, their brains fill in the rest. Add fear of apocalypse, sprinkle in some pressure to be pure enough for rebirth, and suddenly even highly educated adults are participating in ceremonies that look like someone binge-watched the Da Vinci Code while sleep-deprived. In the end, the cult became a deadly echo chamber where obedience was framed as salvation. It's a chilling reminder that humans don't need magic to fall for illusions, just the right combination of fear, hope, and very bad leadership. Number 4. The Rajneesh Movement Picture. A peaceful commune in the Oregon desert, where everyone dresses in shades of red, like they're permanently stuck between romantic date night and target employee orientation. That's the Rajneesh Movement on the surface, a spiritual retreat built around meditation, free love, and mindfulness. Underneath, a political chess game run by a guru who collected Rolls-Royces like they were Pokemon, and a second-in-command who decided that crime was just another form of community outreach. The craziest part? It didn't start as a villain arc. It started as a genuinely attractive idea. Escape the rat race, join a peaceful, intentional community. Find meaning. But then ego, paranoia, and a shocking lack of impulse control fused into a real-life soap opera. Members were convinced they were building a utopia. Meanwhile, leadership was busy wiretapping each other, hoarding weapons, and accidentally carrying out the first and largest bioterror attack on US soil using salad bars. If you've ever wondered how enlightenment, bureaucracy, and bacteria can combine into a complete disaster, this is your case study. Psychologically, the Rajneesh movement is a blueprint for what happens when a group isolates itself, feels persecuted, and believes its leader is spiritually infallible. Once you think the outside world is the enemy, all your worst ideas suddenly look like self-defense. And when your leader owns 93 Rolls-Royces, something about questioning him just feels rude. Basically, imagine a yoga retreat that slowly transforms into a Bond villain lair. That's the Rajneesh story. Number 3. Heaven's Gate. Imagine logging onto the world's sketchiest 1990s website, the kind with neon text and fonts that look like they're trying to escape the screen, and seeing a message telling you the secret to salvation is a spaceship hiding behind a comet. Welcome to Heaven's Gate, the cult that mixed New Age spirituality with sci-fi fan-fiction energy and a whole lot of fear. The group believed Earth was about to be recycled, and the only escape was to shed their human bodies and catch a ride on an alien spacecraft trailing the Hale-Bopp comet. Sounds ridiculous, right? But isolation, shared identity, and constant reinforcement do weird things to your decision-making. If your entire family tells you the sky is green, eventually you stop trusting your own eyes. Heaven's Gate worked by slowly detaching members from normal life. No families, no careers, no personal identity, just the group, the rules, and the promise of cosmic graduation. When your whole world shrinks to one belief system, even the bizarre starts feeling logical. And when everyone around you agrees, it becomes nearly impossible to break away. That's how brainwashing actually works, not with dramatic hypnosis spirals, but with slow, tiny shifts. The result was one of the most shocking mass tragedies in cult history, a haunting reminder that any ideology, no matter how strange, can feel like truth if it's all you're allowed to hear. Number 2. Aum Shinrikyo. Imagine a guy shows up claiming he's mastered yoga, levitation, prophecy, telepathy, and whatever else he could fit onto his supernatural resume, and instead of laughing, thousands of people go, "Wow, finally, someone who gets me." That was Shoko Asahara, the leader of Aum Shinrikyo, a cult that started as a self-improvement group and escalated into one of the most dangerous doomsday movements in modern history. Think wellness retreat, but replace the green smoothies with homemade chemical weapons. Aum Shinrikyo preyed on highly educated young adults who felt disillusioned with society. When life feels empty, having someone say, "Actually, you're chosen for a divine mission," hits harder than any motivational podcast. That's how Asahara built an empire of absolute loyalty, offering certainty, purpose, and a community that treated him like a living god. The problem? His apocalypse prophecies didn't come true fast enough, so he decided to help things along. And nothing says totally stable leader like stockpiling nerve agents. Psychologically, ALM is the perfect storm: isolation, fear-mongering, groupthink, and a leader whose ego had its own gravitational pull. When people believe they're saving the world, morality becomes negotiable. And when dissent is punished, you stop asking questions, you just follow instructions and hope your leader isn't about to commit actual supervillain behaviour. Aum Shinrikyo is proof that intelligence doesn't make you immune to manipulation. If anything, smart people are easier to recruit because they're better at rationalising nonsense. Number 1. Jonestown, the People's Temple. Imagine joining a community that promises equality, justice, compassion, basically everything the real world failed to deliver. At first, the People's Temple was that dream. It welcomed the marginalised, fed the hungry, and gave people a sense of belonging. But that dream had an expiration date, and it ended the moment Jim Jones realised he liked power more than he liked people. Jonestown wasn't built overnight. It was a slow boiler bombing, loyalty tests, public confession sessions, sleep deprivation, fear of outsiders. When you control someone's time, thoughts, and social circle, you control everything. And Jones wielded that control like a man who'd never heard the word therapy in his life. By the time the community moved to the Guyanese jungle, it wasn't a utopia, it was an isolated pressure chamber where the leader's paranoia became law. The tragedy of Jonestown isn't just its scale, but its psychology. People didn't join because they were weak. They joined because they were hopeful. They wanted a better world. And cults thrive on that. The promise that you matter, that you're part of something bigger, that your suffering finally has meaning. Once you buy into the mission, questioning the leader feels like betraying your own identity. What happened in Jonestown remains one of the darkest chapters of human behaviour. Not because people were foolish, but because they were human. And humans desperately want to belong, sometimes to a deadly degree. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.